Today, just a short film about the Christmas tree. This Christmas tree is very special. I usually cut one in my forest if there is one which is growing between other trees or dying. So this year this one was cut, and only when we cut it I noticed it's got witch's broom. Actually, two witch's brooms, one here and one here. Witch's brooms are kind of strange growths on trees where a part of the tree grows differently where shoots are very short, and it's because of many reasons. It can be some kind of hormonal dysfunction caused by a virus, some bacterial infection, fungal infection, or even insect infestation. But the result is a different growth, like a different body. It's a bit like a tumor. So this year I've got this witch's broom Christmas tree. I've never seen before. Actually, I've never seen a Christmas tree with witch's broom, and maybe it's the first one in the world. Okay, so where does Christmas tree come from? Definitely from somewhere between Germany and France, that what we think now. Although the actual tradition might be connected with other pagan traditions like burning Yule log. The log was burned between Christmas and the 6th of January, the Epiphany Day, but it's got definitely longer provenance. Another tradition in Germany was bringing twigs, conifer twigs, and lighting fires on the winter solstice. So these two traditions might have joined. Although there is another theory saying that during medieval times it was very common to have theater stories around Christmas showing Adam and Eve and showing the tree of good and evil, which should be apple with hanging apples and hanging other things. So, but because the apples looked ugly and without leaves, people were using conifers and hanging apples on conifers. So this would be also like not only the solstice tree, but the tree of good and evil from Eden. So, for example, we have a picture of St. Christopher from 1601, we're showing a Christmas tree covered with food, and we have a mention from 1604 from Strasbourg about bringing conifers and hanging apples, cakes, and pieces of sugar and shining things on this tree. Although the tradition really spread slowly from this area. Actually, there are even earlier mentions from this area, from Alsace, and the first town where Christmas tree is mentioned is Sélestat from 1521, so we can move it to the 16th century. And later, of course, the tradition spread. So in the neighboring Netherlands and Belgium, Christmas tree was practically unknown until 1870. But the tradition started spreading to Great Britain in the beginning of the 19th century through German soldiers, aristocrats, and merchants settling in Britain. And it was truly popularized in 1841 when Queen Victoria and Prince Albert placed the first Christmas tree in the Windsor Palace, and that was widely spoken about in the British Isles. So this is like the beginning of the British tradition. In Poland, it was also taking quite long. So there are some areas in Poland where the Christmas tree started appearing in the 19th century, but it got truly popularized during the 20th century, and after Second World War, it became like a standard in Poland. But before, there were different traditions. So people would put the whole bunch of harvested grain, but the whole like stalks with grain in the corner of the house, or they would make hanging paper cutouts or straw cutouts, or decorations hanging from the roof, and maybe even conifer twigs. And it was only later when Christmas tree was introduced. Anyway, enjoy it. So I cut Christmas trees in my forest. I've got a piece of fir forest. Fir is a slowly growing tree, and when there is a lot of competition, when they grow really densely, some of them grow high quite fast, and at the age of like 70, 80, they are really huge, big trees. But others slow down, and because they have less light, they stay underneath. So sometimes you can have like two layers of trees actually, which are the same age. A lot of the trees in my forest are 130 years old, and actually I cut some Christmas trees before, which were 3 meters tall, which were 110 years old, or maybe even older, because it's difficult to count the rings. This year's Christmas tree, I counted the rings, and it's only 40 years, but this was cut at the height of 3 meters, so maybe the lower part is also 100 years old. I mean, I do it because they compete a lot. They grow really, they grow like next to each other. So by removing just a few of them, I give more light and more space to the neighboring trees. So for example, this tree was like bent and half broken, so I decided to remove it to give light to other two neighboring fir trees. In Britain, people have yew trees, they have holly, but here in the Carpathians, in the lower Carpathians, the fir tree is the conifer, is the evergreen #1 and associated with Christmas. It smells beautifully. Of course, in some other areas in the Carpathians, people also have spruce, but spruce is more prickly, and people generally for Christmas decorations prefer fir trees. And of course, in state forests, it is guarded, and there's a lot of stuff in the newspapers about people stealing it from the forest. So of course, most people don't do it, but there is attention to the protection of fir trees, especially they are very sensitive to air pollution and also to climate change. And now, in many parts of Central Europe, fir forests and spruce forests are in bad condition because of the increasing temperature and lowered humidity throughout the year, so they suffer. So I hope they can survive, and in 50 years time my my children and grandchildren can still enjoy Christmas tree from their own forest.